Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Tom, and today we're going to continue talking about a new board game called Raid on Taihoku.
Yeah.
And this is a game that's trying to bring about a sense of Taiwanese-ness because the producer of the game, K.J. Jong, believes it's kind of missing from the local creative merchandise in terms of games and comics. So he's trying to sort of reintroduce Taiwanese history to local young people because they seem to be having a cultural crisis, an identity crisis. We don't really know what it means to be Taiwanese these days.
Yeah, most of our recreational games, it was stated in day one, contain more Western and Japanese culture rather than Taiwan culture. In day two of this particular unit, though, we're going to talk about what the raid was like, what really happened in history, because we know that in schools today, they don't talk about this raid, which I think they should. I think it's good to learn about facts of history, and you can make your own judgment calls. So we're going to do that. Guys, we're going to read through today's lesson, and then we'll talk about what actually happened on the morning of May 31st, 1945. On the morning of May 31st, 1945, 117 heavy bombers flew over Taipei City, known as Taihoku during the Japanese colonial period. Billowing smoke turned the sky white as the bomb struck the city. Conducted by the U.S., the air raid lasted 3 hours, during which time roughly 3,800 bombs were dropped. Though many of the city's residents had been evacuated, more than 3,000 people died in the raid, and tens of thousands were left displaced or homeless. Despite substantial devastation, the Taihoku air raid has largely been kept out of the media and history books. The Republic of China, ROC government of the time, upon accepting Japan's surrender 2 months after the raid, purposefully avoided emphasizing this period of history. The ROC and the U.S. were allies during World War II, and highlighting the bombings might have affected that relationship. Furthermore, the government wanted to focus on the Japanese defeat rather than its allies' role in the bombing. This silence continued until 2007, when the Taipei City government's Department of Cultural Affairs published a book about the Taihoku air raid, the first official document of its kind. In producing the game, Jong wanted to include his detailed research on the Taihoku air raid, much of which is still missing from the public eye. Knowing that people want to relax and have fun with friends while playing the game, however, Jong decided against including it. Instead, players who are interested in learning more are able to order 2 supplemental history books separately from the game. As a result, Raid on Taihoku offers all the entertainment of a board game with the added benefit of a comprehensive account of an oft-ignored piece of Taiwanese history.
Okay, everybody, let's talk about the contents of today's lesson. Our featured subject is the board game Raid on Taihoku. Sounds like a good time for friends to get together, invite everybody over to someone's house, have some drinks, some beverages, some snacks and stuff like that. Get that stuff out and have yourself an enjoyable Saturday afternoon playing a game and learning about Taiwanese history as well. So let's talk about this actual incident that inspired this game, Raid on Taihoku. On the morning of May 31st, 1945, 117 heavy bombers flew over Taipei City, known as Taihoku, during the Japanese colonial period. That was the last year, I suppose, of the Japanese colonial rule. They were about to be kicked out by the Allies, but at that time, in May of 1945, it was still under Japanese control, so Taiwan was still a a colony of the Empire of Japan. So these are heavy bombers flying over the city. Heavy bombers means they're big planes with a crew of several men, and it's got lots of bombs inside.
Well, we're describing what it looked like. Those bombers flew over and dropped bombs. We have billowing smoke. We use that word billowing when we talk about a lot of air or breeze blowing up something. For example, ladies, if you have a very full skirt and you're outside and the wind's pretty strong, it will blow your skirt around, so your skirt will be billowing. Here we're talking about the smoke in the sky. That wind was blowing. It looked like billowing smoke as it moved up into the sky. The sky turned white because the bombs were striking the city. Struck here is the past tense of the verb to strike, which means a sudden movement. We often use strike when we talk about lightning striking, earthquake strike. Here, the bombs were very sudden without warning, and they struck the city.
They blew up on the city, basically, and conducted by the U.S., the United States. The air raid lasted 3 hours, during which time roughly 3,800 bombs were dropped. So I believe this air raid began at 10 in the morning and ended around 1. And during the 3 hours, it was continuous. There was no break, and 3,800 bombs were dropped. So if you were in the central part of Taipei there at the time, I guess the part that used to be inside the walls of Taipei City, you were hearing bombs going off, and you probably were going to have a slim chance of surviving. As we said, over 3,000 people were killed. So again, it was conducted by the U.S. Here's the verb to conduct. That means they carried it out. They were responsible for it, and they did all the work associated with it.
We often use conduct to talk about experiments. You conduct an experiment, conduct a raid if police have a sudden raid or attack or go into a building where they know bad guys are. Here, this was a raid by air. So the military suddenly attacks, usually the enemy. We use this. But the U.S. wasn't an enemy of Taiwan at that point. I think they were trying to attack what they thought were still Japanese people who were living in the northern part of Taiwan. This raid dropped roughly or around. You guys use 左右. We use roughly or around 3,800 bombs. Or we can also say this number, 3,800. A lot of bombs were dropped during this 3-hour period. That's a ton.
Okay, and though many of the city's residents had been evacuated, more than 3,000 people died in the raid, and tens of thousands were left displaced or homeless. So, yes, indeed, they probably heard the planes coming. Somebody told me once that his father, who lived during that time, they all knew how to identify the sounds of airplanes in the sky.
Wow.
And if they had a certain sound, they knew it was an American plane, so they knew they had to run and hide. Or if they heard it was a Japanese plane, then they thought, oh, it's probably okay. They're not going to bomb us. But at the time, though, they probably heard the planes coming and they thought, uh-oh, it's trouble. Let's get out of here. So they were evacuated. If you're evacuated, that means people take you out of a dangerous place. You might be evacuated from, say, Hualien or Yilan when a typhoon comes. Maybe they'll evacuate people from low-lying areas because it's going to rain there and there might be flooding, so people need to be evacuated. And even though these people were evacuated, still 3,000 people died in the raid and tens of thousands of people were left displaced or homeless. And displaced means you're basically not in the place you were before, which basically is almost the same way of saying you were homeless, but in that case, they were someplace else. They had to go someplace else. Maybe they got lost, and so they had to find their way back, and they were separated from their family members, things like that.
Yeah, displaced means you're moved from the place where you should be and you're put somewhere else. So they were displaced probably in some shelters at the time, and a lot were homeless. Moving on to the next paragraph, it says, despite substantial devastation, this Taihoku air raid has largely been kept out of the media and history books, so we don't have much of it that's been reported in our history books, and the media hasn't talked about it either. Largely means almost all of it has been kept out of history books and media, but not all. Some has made it in. Substantial means a lot. So considerable importance, maybe the size has been big or the worth has been big. Here we're talking about devastation, which is another word for destruction. Devastation is non-count. You can't say devastations. Devastation includes a lot of destruction that's not countable. So there was a lot of devastation. But even though that's true, we really haven't heard about it. Mostly it's been kept out of the media and history books. They just haven't talked about it.
No, they haven't. So there was a substantial, significant destruction and devastation. So it's been kept out of the media. It's not in history books. And the Republic of China government of the time, probably up in Nanjing, upon accepting Japan's surrender 2 months after the raid, purposely avoided emphasizing this period of history. So the ROC government had not come to Taiwan at that point. They didn't come over until, 49 or so, or somewhere in there. And so they were up in mainland China there, and the surrender ceremony that took place in Tokyo Bay there later in 1945, everyone had to accept Japan's surrender. They signed on the places indicated during that surrender ceremony there. So the surrender means the act of surrendering. You give up. Okay, we've tried to fight you, but we've lost. You are the victor. We give up. We surrender. So when they accepted their surrender, upon accepting their surrender, they purposely avoided emphasizing this period of history. So basically the ROC government said, okay, you guys have surrendered to us, but we're not going to talk about that raid on Taipei or Taihoku. We just don't want to talk about it because we have political reasons for that.
That's right. So they purposefully, or did this on purpose, they just decided, hey, we're not going to really emphasize this period of history because ultimately the ROC and the U.S. were allies during World War II. If you're allies, it means you and another country or several countries are working together or cooperating together for a military purpose. Maybe you're fighting the enemy together. And we were allies during World War II. And highlighting or deliberately talking about the bombings might affect that relationship or that friendship. If you highlight something, you point out something, an event or a period of time, usually you're highlighting something good. But you can also highlight something that's bad. So highlighting or paying attention, focusing on those bombings might have affected that relationship. And of course, the ROC wanted the U.S. to help protect them after the end of World War II from China.
Exactly. So they didn't want the Americans to look bad, so they decided not to emphasize that, and that's probably the reason why so many of us know so little about that event in history. Okay, that brings us to the midway point in today's lesson. Let's take a little bit of a break now and listen to our Chinese teacher.
Hello everyone, my name is Tina. 我们来看一下今天课文的第一句写着On the morning of May 31st, 1945, 117 heavy bombers flew over Taipei City, known as Taihoku, during the Japanese colonial period. 这里提到的这个史实 1945年5月31号的早晨，有117架的 heavy bombers 重型的轰炸机飞越当时被称为 Taihoku 的台北市的天空上面。而后面的句子则提到 Conducted by the U.S., the air raid lasted 3 hours, during which time roughly 3,800 bombs were dropped. 在这里的 conducted 有去执行去做，而这样子的空袭呢，是由美军所实行的。我们常常说 to conduct a survey，进行调查 to conduct an experiment 做实验都可以用 conduct 这个动词。这一次的空袭持续了3个小时 during which time 在这里呢连接前后的句子，然后用 which 呢来代替前面的这个时间。在这个时间呢大约呢有3800枚的炸弹被投掷在台北的这个地方。而当时因为时空的背景，所以呢其实多半媒体跟历史的书籍都避而不提这个事件。 第二段的第二个句子提到 The Republic of China, ROC government of the time, upon accepting Japan's surrender 2 months after the raid, purposefully avoided emphasizing this period of history. 在这里提到当时的中华民国的政府呢 upon 再加上名词或者是 VING 这么解释成为一怎么样就怎么样。那么他在一接受日本的投降2个月，在这个空袭之后一接受了投降，那么当然他就刻意的purposefully 刻意的避免强调这段时期的历史，而其中的原因当然是要保持跟美国的良好关系。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, everybody, let's continue with our lesson. We're talking about the actual event in history that inspired this new board game called Raid on Taihoku. It's a game that you can play with your friends or family members and have a great time on a rainy typhoon day or something like that. But also, it gives you the opportunity to learn a little bit about Taiwanese history and maybe improve your Taiwanese-ness as we're talking about in this article. So again, we're talking about the actual incident itself, how many bombs were dropped, how many people were killed, people were evacuated, lots of buildings were damaged. I think the presidential palace was actually hit, so is Longshan Temple, so is the Bank of Taiwan, so is the Taipei railway station. Lots of buildings were hit and lots of people were killed. Okay, so remember, we also mentioned that the ROC government decided not to stress this period of history because of the relationship with the ROC and the U.S. So that's why so few people know about this incident. And furthermore, the government wanted to focus on the Japanese defeat rather than its allies' role in the bombing. So they wanted to stress the fact that, well, yeah, there was this bombing, but hey, Japan, they were really terrible. Think about all the people they killed and all the territory they took away from people and, you know, the Nanjing massacre and all that kind of stuff. The Japanese were really terrible, so they decided to emphasize that and not talk about this bombing raid so much.
This silence about the Taihoku air raid continued until 2007. But in 2007, that's when the Taipei City government's Department of Cultural Affairs actually published a book that they had written about the Taihoku air raid. If you publish a book, of course, you take your manuscript, what you've written, and you take it to a publishing house or a publisher, and you get it printed up, and it's available for sale to the public. So they published a book about the air raid at that point, and that became the first official document of its kind. When you talk about a document, you're usually talking about a piece of paper or some sort of book, something that's printed. Of course, today we use a lot of electronic documents, but we can also use document as a verb, which means you put something down in writing. If you want to document something, you might videotape it so that there's proof of it for people beyond this current time. Here, though, we're using document as a noun, and they wanted to say, hey, we know about this period of time. Here's some information about it. And people then had access to more details about the Taihoku air raid.
Indeed, so this is the first official document of the kind that was published. And again, we're talking about the creator of this game, K.J. Jong. And in producing the game, Jong wanted to include his detailed research on the Taihoku air raid, much of which is still missing from the public eye. So even though we do have this document published by the Taipei City government's Department of Cultural Affairs, even though we have this document published, Jong still thinks that there's some of the details missing, or we could learn more about it. So knowing that people want to relax and have fun with friends while playing the game, however, Jong decided against including it. So yes, indeed, if you kind of hit someone over the head with too much information, they won't think the game is fun anymore. They'll think they're being preached to, and they won't really want to play. They'll lose interest. So he realized that, yes, I want to let them know about this incident, but I also want them to relax and have fun with their friends while playing the game. So he decided against including all that information. This was his decision. If you decide against something, that means you make a decision that does not approve of what you were thinking before.
Right. So I think it was a good decision because when people want to relax, they typically don't want someone lecturing to them. Movies will sometimes do that. And you think, oh, come on. I just came to enjoy myself. I don't need this. So instead, players who are interested in learning more, and I'm sure there are lots of players out there who are, you have another option. You can order 2 supplemental history books separately from the game. So they took what they learned, put them into supplemental history books, and then made it possible for people who are interested in learning more to order them. Supplemental means extra, so it's something you want to add to something else to complete it or make it whole, enhance it. So these are supplemental history books that come separate from the game, but you're able to order them, which is, I think is a great idea. You probably see some information on the board game, maybe on the box or something. For more information, please go to this website or dial this phone number to order these books. So that was his decision, although he decided, hey, let's keep the game just fun, but if they want more, it's available.
Right, as supplementary information. So as you said, there are probably some addresses they can write to or websites they can visit to order these books if they get interested in this particular event from Taiwanese history, or maybe some other lessons in Taiwanese history as well. And as a result, Raid on Taihoku offers all the entertainment of a board game with the added benefit of a comprehensive account of an oft-ignored piece of Taiwanese history. So this is the result of the design of the game and his decision against including all that information about that particular incident. So as a result of all that, this game, Raid on Taihoku, offers entertainment and also a comprehensive account on what happened. So yes, indeed, you get the entertainment of a board game and the added benefit or the additional benefit, the bonus benefit of this comprehensive account. Comprehensive means it includes a lot of things, a lot of information. In this particular case, account means basically the testimony or the information about this particular historical event.
You might have, a physical that you want to go get, see how your body's doing, if you're healthy or not. It might be a comprehensive physical, which includes almost all of the tests that are possible out there. Probably cost a lot if you get a comprehensive physical. So comprehensive account means they're including just about everything. Not everything, but almost. An account is kind of the history of something. Usually it's a report of something, a description of something that happened. Here it's a description of the event, the air raid itself. And it's also got some oft-ignored piece of Taiwanese history. We don't always hear about this. This is the very first time I've ever heard about it. And I love history, especially World War II. It's kind of a big deal because we live right here in Taiwan and we don't even know about it. But now you do. And we've got a game that'll keep you entertained as well. Oft-ignored. We often don't see this used as an adjective, but it's describing this piece of Taiwanese history. It's often ignored. And you can just use oft-ignored instead of often ignored to turn that into an adjective. We hope that the listeners out there, though, now that you know about it, will get your hands on some of this supplemental history that's out there and maybe even order the book that the Taipei government published in 2007 and learn a little bit more about the Taihoku air raid.
And there's probably a lot more to learn in terms of Taiwanese history, ranging all the way from the early settlers to Aboriginal history to later history involving the Dutch and the Spanish and the Japanese, etc. So this might whet your appetite for more historical lessons, and you might become an expert in Taiwanese history, and you'll make your contribution to Taiwan's national identity. Okay, that brings us to the end of our lesson for today. Here comes our Chinese teacher.
接着我们来看到第二段的最后一句提到 This silence continued until 2007 when the Taipei City Government's Department of Cultural Affairs published a book about the Taihoku Air Raid, the first official document of its kind. 其实当时一直保持着这段史实的沉默，而这样子的沉寂呢，一直持续直到2007年，台北市政府的文化局它出版了一本书，而这本书呢就谈到了 The Taihoku Air Raid 台北大空袭。那么在这里补充说明，它是 the first official document of its kind， 是属于呢第一份关于此类的官方文件。 Document 可以解释成为公文或者是文件的意思。举个例子来说，他很仔细的把所有的文件都整理归档，你就可以说 She carefully filed all the documents。 接着我们来看到最后一段的第一句In producing the game, John wanted to include his detailed research on the Taihoku Air Raid, much of which is still missing from the public eye. 事实上呢，在制作这款桌游的时候，张少莲本来是想要针对他对台北大空袭所做的 detailed research 详尽的研究，也想要把它含括进去，因为 much of which 有出现了，这里的 which 代替前面这里所谈到的 the Taihoku Air Raid， 很多有关于大空袭的这些资讯呢，仍然是 missing from the public eye， 我们解释成为是尚未广为人知的。但是呢，因为呢，大家在玩桌游的时候只想放松，跟朋友同乐，所以他最后只好放弃。这一段的最后一句提到 As a result, Raid on Taihoku offers all the entertainment of a board game with the added benefit of a comprehensive account of an oft-ignored piece of Taiwanese history. 所以因此你现在看到的台北大空袭，除了提供你桌游所具备的所有的娱乐元素 all the entertainment of a board game 还提供你什么呢？ The added benefit 额外的好处就是 a comprehensive account comprehensive 当作形容词，解释成为无所不包的综合的。 account 则是一个描述跟一个记述，那么它所包括的也是一段常被忽略的台湾历史的详尽描述。在这里 OFT 常常呢跟过去分词连用，解释成为经常怎么的，所以 oft ignored 经常被忽略的。那如果我们说 oft repeated 经常被重复的，也可以这么解释。 OK， 以上就是今天的课文讲解，谢谢收听。
That's it for today, guys. That was day 2 of our unit on the raid on Taihoku, a game that delivers more than just fun. You can learn some history as well. Thanks for joining us, guys. We hope you'll come back soon. For English Digest, I'm Stephanie.
I'm Tom.
Bye.